What's the dumbest reason someone refused to believe you? I warned a pet store owner their python's enclosure was about to fail, and they accused me of trying to sabotage their grand opening to steal their customers. I've been handling reptiles for 12 years professionally, and I've seen every type of enclosure failure you can imagine, which is why I knew immediately something was wrong when I walked into the new pet store's grand opening event. The place was packed with families checking out the new store, while employees were setting up for the ribbon-cutting ceremony at noon, with the mayor who was already practicing his speech about supporting local businesses. The owner had positioned their 16-foot reticulated python in a display case right at the entrance with a huge sign reading, "Duchess the Gentle Giant," but I recognized that specific silver latch system immediately. It was a recalled model I'd personally dealt with in 3 lawsuits from other stores when those latches failed after the internal spring corroded. The way the metal was already discolored around the edges meant this one had maybe an hour left before complete failure, and there were at least 50 people in the store, including a whole birthday party of 8-year-olds getting their faces painted right next to the snake's enclosure. I pushed through the crowd to find the owner near the registers, and showed him the recall notice on my phone that I kept saved specifically for these situations. "You need to move that python immediately because that's a recalled latch, and the spring is about to fail," I said, pointing to the visible corrosion. He looked at my shirt with my reptile consulting company logo, and his whole demeanor changed. "Oh, perfect timing," he said, loud enough for customers to hear. "The competitor who's been calling my suppliers trying to poach them shows up to cause a scene on my biggest day." I had no idea what he was talking about, but he kept getting louder. 3 years I worked at corporate pet stores watching them rip people off with fake emergency repairs, and now that I'm independent, you show up with your little scare tactics. A crowd started gathering, and he seemed energized by the audience. "This man wants me to tear apart my $3,000 custom enclosure and buy whatever overpriced replacement he happens to have in his van." One woman said, "They tried that same thing at my salon," which made the owner puff up even more. "Security is already on the way, so I suggest you leave before this gets embarrassing for you," he said, pushing me toward the door. I tried showing him the actual corrosion, but he announced 10% off today for anyone who witnessed this pathetic sabotage attempt. The crowd applauded, and I noticed the latch was visibly bent from Duchess testing it. "Your insurance company is going to love hearing how you ignored a documented recall," I said, heading for the exit while quietly telling the face painter she might want to take the kids to the bathroom right about now. I stayed in the parking lot calling animal control, but they said they couldn't respond without an active emergency, so I sat in my van watching through the massive front windows as the mayor began his speech about entrepreneurs who weren't afraid to challenge the status quo. About 10 minutes later, I saw Duchess push her head against the door, and the latch fell off with a metallic ping that everyone heard, causing the store to go silent for 2 seconds before pandemonium erupted. The snake flowed out, heading straight for the party lights, and birthday children scattered screaming, while parents knocked over displays trying to reach their kids. The owner lunged forward to grab Duchess, but had no idea how to handle a large python, and she slipped through his arms, heading for the tropical fish section, where she coiled around a support pole. The pole cracked, and 500 gallons of water exploded across the floor, along with exotic fish, while the owner slipped and landed face first in bags of dog food that turned into mud. He tried to stand, but stepped on a hamster ball that sent him backward into the party table where the cake flipped onto his head, just as water hit the electrical panel and sprinklers activated, soaking everyone. The mayor ran for the exit yelling, "This is not what I meant by challenging the status quo," while knocking over bird cages that released parakeets throughout the store, and one landed on the owner's head, squawking, pretty boy," which made children laugh despite their terror. The owner was crawling through mud, screaming, "Somebody do something," while Duchess calmly explored the register area, and parents carried children through ankle-deep water toward the exits. I walked back in carrying my emergency snake hook and transport container, then approached Duchess, who had wrapped herself around the lottery ticket display, probably enjoying the height advantage. Using proper tailing technique, I secured her in under 30 seconds and placed her gently in my ventilated container while the owner stood there dripping with cake frosting and mud, just staring at me. The birthday mom grabbed her daughter and said, "Next year we're going to Chuck E. Cheese like I wanted," and stormed out through the flood. I carried Duchess out to my van while behind me the owner was trying to explain to someone on the phone why he had ignored a documented recall warning, but I couldn't hear the rest because the fire alarm started blaring. When I drove past 3 hours later, there was a handwritten sign on the door that said, "Closed for maintenance," and I never saw him again.